New microphone.
I'll hold it out here now. Welcome to Coffee and Conversation, everyone, for August. Before I pass the mic theoretically over to Steve, I just wanted to provide two quick updates. One is less important and the other is, a little bit more important. So the first one, if anyone has seen some activity around Aspen and has a question about it, I have an answer. And it's not that fun. It's kind of dull but important. So we are in the process of improving the emergency exit access for Aspen Village. So at the moment, previously when Cedarwood existed, the old Cedarwood building, the emergency exit was actually into the old Cedarwood building. When the old Cedarwood building went away, it kind of goes out to a grassy patch of nothing, which isn't really appropriate. You need to have it exit appropriately into a gathering spot, and that's what we are creating. So we're creating that graded pathway appropriately for an emergency exit, and we are cleaning up the walkway in between Aspen Village and Oak Tree. So if anyone has done that walk before, if it rains, it can kind of get a little muddy and gross, but that wall is constructed to prevent that from occurring. So those two things. So it looks like a lot of work. It's not that much. It looks like it's going to be new and exciting. It's not really. Secondarily, obviously the biggest news of the past week everyone is aware of as far as Pastor O'Hara. I don't have a significant amount of information to share, and that is the essence of the update. We're still communicating with his family to understand what their wishes are for him, both in terms of a service for him on their terms and with Frederick living. So Emily is in communication with Dick's family, and anything that we know, whenever we know it, we will share. One clarification. I believe I was at the beginning of the FELRA meeting on Tuesday, and I believe information was shared in relation to a FELRA officer or a FELRA position that included a search committee. That does not connect with the chaplain position. Folks reached out to Emily, they reached out to some other team members and said, I want to be on the search committee for the chaplain replacement. That isn't what we were mentioning there. Those are two different things. We're still, as you all are, we're still in a position of shock, we're still in a position of grief, and we're not at the point where we're looking ahead for that position at the moment. So we will, when we do, we'll talk about that, but we don't have any particular news as it relates to that yet. Okay? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. And we just share in that grief. Such a challenging situation, and certainly all of you and Dick's family have been in our prayers over this past amount of time as well. So continue to hold them up. Updates from Garden Spot Communities, kind of the higher level things. Not a whole lot really new to update you on there. As you may recall, our Exchange building in Harrisburg is open. They're working on getting that occupied. One of the things we've learned in that is that that's just a strictly rental apartment building. Rentals tend to fill up maybe a little bit slower. It's had a lot of traffic, a lot of activity, but people say, well, I'll be back when my lease is up. And so you kind of have to wait until that natural end of those existing leases in order to get folks transitioned and moved in. So we're still feeling good about that. Occupancy is not quite what we had hoped for, but we're confident that we'll get there. So that's a work in progress. The other thing, just to say that as we enter into this new fiscal year, we have a new group of work teams or goal teams that has been established for the coming year. It's been our practice for the last couple of years to just identify certain specific things out of our strategic plan that we want to continue to lean into and work real hard on in a concentrated basis. And so we have some goal teams from last year that are continuing into this year. We have other goal teams that have wrapped up their work and new goal teams started. But a couple of those that might be interesting to you. One of those will be looking at this concept of longevity. And it's not living longer, but it's how do we help our health span to run the full length of our lifespan. And so how do we, well, let me put it this way. Traditionally in American society, we've kind of reached middle age, somewhere in our late 40s to late 50s, and then typically begin this long, slow decline of health. And so more and more with research and medical technology and information on eating well and all those kind of things, we believe that we can do a better job of supporting people to kind of live healthier longer, and then at the end of life, that's a fairly rapid decline, which I think is probably the way most of us want to live. I've always said that, I want to die lacing up my hiking boots when I'm getting ready to go on a hike. And not have that kind of long period of decline. So that's something we have a team that's going to be working on over the coming year and coming up with some strategies and approaches, how we deal with that. We're also looking at a kind of a collective communication team to think about how are we communicating with staff and with residents, and can we find more efficient ways to do that so that we get the information out that people are interested in, and do that in a way that works well with everyone. Artificial intelligence has been a hot topic over the last year or so, and so we have a team that's gearing up to think, what are some practical applications for artificial intelligence? And what are the safeguards that we put on that so that we don't allow that to spin out of control? So that's a lot of good opportunities there. We believe that there's opportunities to be more efficient in some of our back-of-house business practices and other sorts of things. But at the same time, we fully realize that artificial intelligence is never going to take the place of human connection. And so the goal in that effort would be to have staff freed up from some of those routine, time-consuming duties that they have and they're responsible for. If we can offload some of that to artificial intelligence, some of those repetitive kind of things, then that would free up staff to be able to interact more and do the work that they want to do, that they love doing, of spending more quality time with the folks who live here. And then, of course, we've got a group that's been working on assisted living here, and how do we transition from personal care to assisted living so that we can broaden and deepen the level of services that are able to be provided in that setting. So that and a few others, but really some fun work, I think, that's coming up this year, and some good things. We'll give updates and reports on how that's coming as time goes on through the course of the year. But kind of excited about some of those challenges before us and some of the opportunities that exist. So those are some quick updates. Steve, I don't know if you have anything in addition to that. Maybe we'll stop there and see what's on your mind, and what questions or comments you might have, either for us or for the team here. Lou just wants that new microphone.
Sometimes I think I'm the spokesman for a lot of people here. A lot of people won't bring these things up, but they'll say something to me, so I'll bring it up. First of all, it's a great place. I love this place. My wife wants to know why we moved here because I'm in chronic pain. I'm doing stuff I shouldn't be doing. So I get a bunch of shots. About a month or two ago, it was brought up that we were going to start paying to clean the windows. And I thought about that for a while, and I thought back to the HOA. I was vice president, and the COA and we owned the buildings. You were responsible for the inside. When I moved here, one of the things I didn't have to do anymore was the windows. Inside, yes, outside, no. It is more beneficial for you to clean those windows because, first of all, they're not the greatest windows in the world, and they have a fuzziness along the side, and every time they've been cleaned, all they cleaned was the glass. They did not clean the mechanicals on the sides, they did not clean the windowsills, and they didn't do the screens. Now, we can pay for that, but I can't believe that you can't get a better price if you bid it right, because it wasn't bid right the last 2 times, because all they did was the glass. And I'd like you to rethink that. You can keep passing things on to us, but I don't quite understand that from 2 points. 1, the actual care of the windows, and 2, the liability you put yourself in because you're asking people now to clean those windows or pay to have them cleaned. So now people get their ladder out because they don't want to pay that $7 a window glass, which I don't even know whether it does include the mechanicals and the windowsills and the screens, okay? And the end result is someone falls off that ladder and the son comes in and says, I'm concerned because my wife, whatever was told the windows would be cleaned, okay? So you need to rethink that. It was one of the things that happened when I moved to a villa. I owned the villa. The first thing I had to do was take the windows out and put new ones in. They were 18 years old. People hardly ever cleaned them because they were only there 3 or 4 months, okay? So that you need to rethink. My next part, I want to swing to the grass. It's not an expensive item as far as if you want to take care of it, it is. But my question is, what was the bid? Because it seems to me that it didn't include the weeds, it didn't include the broadcast, it didn't include the take care of the crabgrass by pre-emergence, okay? And that's the same thing that happened with the windows. Whoever bid them didn't bid them, because I talked to Greg Witters when they did clean the windows that year. And he looked at me and he said, all they're cleaning is the glass? Well, that bid was put out by someone in housekeeping. Okay, so those are the only 2 things that I get concerned about. One is bids that seem to me aren't thoroughly thought through, okay, by the people that are actually putting them out there. And those are the 2 things I want you to think about. The food, I think, is better. The restaurant is great. And what you're doing at the assisted living and the other places that you're trying to improve, that's great too. But I will not talk, okay, when I think there's something that's affecting all of us in an incorrect way. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for that feedback. Certainly appreciate that. And that's the point of our conversations, right, is to not just get together and celebrate the things that are going well. We certainly want to do that, but continue to look at how we can do better. So appreciate that feedback on those bids. And the window pane. Well, yeah, he tied those together.
It was very frustrating. It was very frustrating because that was one of the things. I have bad shoulders. I am not, doppy was my mother's word to describe me, so we'll just go from there. So the thought of the windows are tall. I can't reach the top of the windows. So do you want a window that's cleaned half up and then I die 8 years from now or move out? It looks like the devil. And when I came in, that was promised. So it is very difficult to say, okay, you promised that this is how it'll be, and then all of a sudden, it's not. When I moved here, it was promised that I would have my house done every 10 years, and there would be a place for me to stay, and that this would all be done. That promise is taken away, and I think one of the things that disturbs those of us who have been here a while is what's next.
And I'm sorry, what was the second promise that was taken away?
The fact that when we moved, and at 10 years, when they redid the houses, there would first of all be done, that we would be given a place to stay.
Okay.
And then it was changed, oh yes, but you can stay in and we'll put the stuff out on a pod on the driveway and you won't have to worry about it. Now we can't even stay in the house. I don't like the idea that I don't know what's going to come next.
Yeah, no, I certainly understand that. We can certainly take a look at some of those things, and we'll see if we can find ways to accomplish that with less inconvenience for folks. So thank you.
I'll see if I can address the root of the concern to the best of our ability too, in terms of a promise that was provided a decade ago versus a change. What I'll start with is what I can't promise. I can't promise that there will be no change over the course of 10 years in what we as a community can provide. What I can promise is that if there are gaps in terms of our thinking or our communicating that we don't do well, that we need input on better, or that we can communicate our thinking better, that we can do. And so if there are gaps in how we obtained your feedback or how we communicated what we hope to do, that's where I think we can immediately get better. So I do apologize in both of those instances if that occurred.
I appreciate that. And communication is always difficult in a facility like this. But you're communicating to me that it won't be done. I don't know that you could do that in a better way.
Fair enough. 1, 2, 3.
Real quick on the same subject, just out of curiosity, is window maintenance not considered part of exterior maintenance or maintenance period for a home? Because what I remember of the original contract is we are not responsible for the maintenance inside or outside.
Yeah, I would say let us have a little more conversation on that topic and learn a little bit more about how that goes forward. Yeah.
Don't be sorry. I'm not going to fully respond to something that I need just a little bit of freshening up on.
Yeah, the idea of moving out of your structure to get ready to have it prepared, it kind of blew my mind because we had our house painted and the painters just moved all the stuff around. They want to move everything out. There's no way I cannot be in the bed I'm in, the way my neck is, because I sleep on my back, sitting up almost. But I can't believe that they couldn't move it out a little bit and paint. We're not going to change the rug in that room because there's no way to take the bed down. So we have to look at first, and we're still doing that 10-year thing. I mean, there's some being done. But each one has got to be different based on the health of the people that are there, okay? You can't just say we're not doing it, okay? And I'm willing to be flexible, so that's why I said there's no new rug going in that bedroom because there's no way to do it. It's a sleep number king, okay? And so therefore I have to be in it. And everyone's going to have a different thoughts in their mind based on their health, okay? So it does have to be looked at, okay? I'm not saying at some point it might not be exactly the same, but you can't just do one thing and think that's the only way you do it. That's my point, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say when you're doing those refurbishments, it really depends on the scope of work that needs to be completed. If it's just painting a wall, absolutely, you could do that and life could go on with minimal interruptions. But if you're replacing flooring and painting and doing all the things, it's just really difficult to do that with people still, because at the end of every night, you have to go back in and set up the bedroom again. You know, and if you've been working on flooring and tearing things out and all that, it just gets incredibly complicated. And we realize that we're all used to a routine, and what we would never want to have happen is for somebody to get up in the middle of the night and the furniture is not placed directly, or there's pieces of equipment that are left there for work the next day, and to have somebody trip and fall in the midst of all of that. So it seems simple, like why can't they just come in and work around me? But to do that efficiently becomes really challenging. And so that's why oftentimes we ask people to relocate for a short period of time. It is an inconvenience, but it's for the improvement that they all receive the benefit of, and it minimizes the amount of time, the amount of disruption, and hopefully any chance of ongoing problems as a result of that. So, go ahead.
When you talked about communication, I think one of the problems is people don't read the communication they get. How do you get people to make sure you read this? And a lot of times we get communication on the television, we get the handout, a weekly handout, and information is there. You have to emphasize people, hey, you got to read this. Second item, they put, I don't know if it was herbicide, something on the lawn, but they had a little sign in the lawn. Before, when the previous lawn company was here, they would let us know ahead of time. They put rather large signs up. Now, I'm not a lawn guy. I could care less about the lawn, really. But no, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm not a lawn guy. You know, I had somebody cut my lawn. But yeah, I just had a small sign there, and I don't know if it was it didn't hurt animals or what. All right, oh, it does. All right, okay. So the other thing, addressing Lou's comment, I painted a lot, and we did a room at a time. We did a whole house, a room at a time. There was a crew. You came in, you moved the furniture, you covered everything else, you painted it. Half a day you were done, you went to the next room, and people were willing to do that. It was their house. They couldn't move anywhere else. It's a little hard to do, but we did it that way. Okay, and the other thing about the lawn people, while I'm on this, they ripped up a lot of the lawn here when they plowed in the wintertime, and they never put anything down. The previous company would at least try to cover those up and replant. And another thing while I'm on this, they took down a lot of trees here. Are any of those trees going to be replaced at all? I think there were 9. They took 9 on the east side of the campus. Some I know why some were taken down, but I was wondering if there's any plan to replace the trees. Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
I'd say timing for tree replacement is not yet. Now this summer has been especially wet. I mean, we've had a good amount of rain, and so, but you can't always predict that. And so typically you wait for fall in order to do those major plantings.
And isn't it nice that we got rid of those trees? That's a good thing. I like that. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, so to Steve's point, do we have an idea of what's next? We have a bit of an idea of what's next, but it's just not immediate in order to take those steps. For some of the items related to Bates Landscaping, the lawn company, that's feedback that I can share with Al, that Ryan is paying attention to now as we speak. Don't worry, Ryan, I'll put you on the spot. But great guy. But we're listening, we're paying attention, and we'll take note.
Especially on spraying the lawns and not notifying some of us dog owners or cat owners when the cats are outside, especially the little ones. They don't react well to that.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and that's something we need to probably put a focus on, is how do we spread that word consistently before those applications are done.
While we're on the subject of maintenance, I, for my own place, had notified maintenance about painting the entrance door to the garage. But I've noticed that quite a few of the garage doors, entrance garage doors, are in bad shape, paint peeling. Is there something that's being done to have a painter come in and redo those? We're all about 10 years old.
I can't say for sure. That one hasn't particularly been on my radar, but it can be. And I'm looking at Jeff for that mental note.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly do a survey. If I would say if you have a situation where the paint is looking really, really bad, go ahead and call that in to facility services, to Al, and let them know, and they'll put that on a list.
I have just one comment on what Jim said. I noticed the paint was peeling on my entrance door, and I reported it to maintenance, and within a couple of days, they came out and painted it. In the hot weather. I said, you're not paint this hot weather, but they did.
Yeah, good, thank you.
On the cone flowers, I raised this issue because they did paint mine. The trim and the transits up there, they're inset, so there's a real flat section right there that can get water on it. And they repainted mine straight because it actually came off when they used the power washing to wash the building. And I asked them to check all the cone flowers. I don't know if they ever did or not, because if they don't get painted properly, they'll rot right out. Okay? So somebody needs to just ask if that was done, ever done, other than mine.
Will do.
On the positive side of things, Larry and I are over at Maplewood. The fellows who did the tree removal were excellent. They were worth every penny of it. They were fascinating to watch. They hauled those trees around like they were dinner forks and cleaned up. You could have almost eaten off the macadam, so they were worth every penny.
Oh, wonderful, yeah. That is a whole art form,
I know.
taking down trees, yeah.
That is incredible.
A simple question. Before we have a fire alarm, that's kind of a standard thing by the state or whoever authorized it just for a trial, is anyone in Frederick notified before that occurs?
Frank, I do enjoy the way that you phrase your questions. Couple of things. Yes, some people are notified. Very, very few. So the idea of hosting a fire drill is that as little people as possible know it's coming so that everyone treats it as a real fire. So when there is a fire in a space, essentially the administrator of that space is the one who's aware, and that's it. When it comes to actual fires, they may be actual and significant, or they may be very minuscule. But when those do occur, they do alarm everywhere so that everyone on campus who can respond does respond. For instance, it wasn't this week, it was last week, we had two incidents over the last 2 weeks. Both were, thankfully, nothing. But the alarms went off, they were loud, and people responded. There was an incident in Magnolia House, probably around 6:45 in the morning, where it was related to some steam from a shower. And there was some dust particles from some of the work going on in Aspen that crawled in through the door and seeped in that way, both of which were loud, frustrating, etc. But they were not drills. They were real events that alarmed and we all had to respond to.
Okay, a follow-up to that is, who initiates the call here? Not from here, but is it the fire company that looks at something and says, hey, we have to go to Frederick and have I'm trying to think of the word. A drill, I'm sorry. In other words, is it the fire company that says, we in a certain month have to go to Frederick and have a drill? Who is it that determines that drill? And then after that, I have my final question.
I can answer this one too, Frank. Were you a trial attorney? It's like you're building your case, and then I'm going to get slammed at the end. Sorry, I'm just kidding with you, Frank. So, when a fire drill occurs, we are the ones who initiate it. There are occasions where we do it ourselves, and there are occasions where we work with an organization to help us do that. So how it should go is we take our fire alarm system offline, we ignite a smoke detector, and the drill commences. That is how it should go. So theoretically, no one from Upper Frederick Township, the fire department, or anyone should be involved in those scenarios. It's an internal response that does not go out to the township.
Okay, then, and my last comment on all that is if someone outside occurs that, such as the fire company, and it's impromptu when the drill will occur, if they had our monthly scheduled map, not that they would do this, and you highlight maybe the 8 or 10 things where you have a concert in here, you have paid performers, certain circumstances on that 27-hour basis, you're talking about maybe 10 hours that you're politely saying, do your impromptu drill whenever you want, but if you could avoid those time frames, it would be beneficial to the performers and the people here that certain times you're politely saying, we rather you not do this drill during that time. That's it. Thank you.
Understood. There are some restrictions where we have to have a certain amount during certain times of the day, evening, overnight, all that unfun stuff. But to your point, if there is a important thing going on at 1 o'clock in the auditorium, can we have it at noon instead of 1 o'clock? Yes, that is certainly something that is within our control.
I usually don't say anything. Just two things. We did have an instance where we had a problem, and we had many apparatuses arrive. And I personally got a phone call when a friend of mine who lives quite a few miles away, he wanted to know, is everything okay? Because they got notification. I was very pleased that all those people came out. With regard to our fire drills and with regard to anything that is over the address system, we still are not saying all clear. It has to be done because people don't understand if there's something still going on, and they have to be aware that it might spread to their area. So if we can do something about that, that would be great.
That may be an occurrence where the all clear, and I'm looking at Jeff, but we can work on this. We do initiate that each time that it's complete. So there may be some area, and I do hear it, there may be some areas where that's not coming through, and we can work on that specifically.
Who's responsible for turning that alarm off when it's over? 15 minutes is a little excessive.
15 minutes is excessive when it is an actual event. So that's where that comes into play. We are responsible for turning the system off when it's a drill. When it is not a drill, the township, the fire department are the ones who are responsible for turning it off. And if we take the initiative and say, it's just a little bit of smoke, it's no big deal, we'll turn it off, they don't like that. They like to be the ones who turn it off.
Do we ever have to have a real fire drill? When I think of fire drill, I think it goes off and we have to leave the building. I mean, I taught school 35 years. When that alarm went off, every child had to leave the building. I've been here 3 years. We've never had to have an actual drilled. Would 100% of the people in here know where to go if there was a fire?
So I'll do the easy one quick. So in our regulated spaces, skilled nursing, personal care, et cetera, we are required monthly in certain circumstances to host fire drills in those spaces. When it comes to independent living spaces, we haven't done one in Oak Tree for a couple of years now, if I'm correct, right, Emily? It's been a couple of years.
So just a little bit of feedback for how we have filtered that at Garden Spot Communities level. One of the differences that you're kind of describing is the difference between OSHA regulations that a school district, any business, a corporation would be under, and residential HUD regulations that we're actually under for our apartments and things. All of our construction here is made so that it is fire rated. It's not fireproof, but it's fire rated. So a door might have a 45-minute rating or a 2-hour rating, which means if you're on this side of the door and the fire's on the other side of the door, technically it takes 2 hours for that fire to get through the door to you. So the standard of care for the HUD regulations that way is to shelter in place. If you don't smell smoke, you don't see any fire, stay put where you are. I think all the apartment doors are rated for at least 45 minutes, if not an hour. And then you're listening, you're staying tuned to what's next or what might be happening, what response you might need. This is all predicated on the fact that the fire company is within about 15 minutes of here. And our primary direction that we would take actually comes from the fire chief or the fire marshal. We're going to be the first responder to determine, get those people away from that area on the other side of a fire-rated door. So that's our first response. But then we're really listening to the fire chief, and what the fire chief says, these people need to be evacuated off of this floor or out of this area. Maybe the people that are above where a fire might be or right next to where a fire might be. Other than that, the fire chief is probably going to say keep everybody else where they are behind their door because that it's a fire-rated door. So that's why you don't see en masse. There's much more of a chance of somebody getting injured if we try and do an actual fire drill. And we say, and I know what you mean from a school standpoint, a company standpoint, you had your spot in the parking lot. It's like this whole office group, you go by that tree. This whole office group, you go over there in that corner. This whole, that kind of thing. Like, sure, we all would remember that from our careers, but we specifically don't do that in this setting because there's much more of a chance of somebody getting injured, like, we're all trying to get down the steps. That's not a good thing. But staying on the other side, on the safe side of your fire-rated door is a good thing. So anyway, that's the general, kind of the 1,000-foot view of it. But that's why you don't see us doing fire drills where somebody has, this floor has a designated spot out in that parking lot. Like, no, on the whole, we're going to shelter in place. You're going to stay on the safe side of your fire-rated door.
Just add one quick thing to that, and Steve's absolutely right. They refer to that as defend in place. And if the fire company determined that people needed to be moved off of a floor, they would be there to assist with that. And so it would be very supported. Again, we wouldn't want people just kind of flooding down the stairway and trying to move themselves, completely out of a building. But the fire company would have personnel on scene to assist. Staff would be there to help assist and so forth. So we would want that to be kind of supported and assisted and monitored as we go through in the event that that would take place. And as Steve said, the buildings are designed, when we go through all of the approvals to build a building, that's one of the key things they look at is it going to be able to sufficiently handle a defend-in-place type approach?
Contrary to what you've said, at Oak Tree, we're supposed to leave our apartments, put a sign on the door that says evacuated, go to either end of the hall where the outside stairways are, and leave the building. Except for those who have 4 wheels, we're supposed to stay in place within that hallway because that's a safety area. So, again, I apologize, it's different, and Emily's coming.
Yeah, no, and we can actually take a second look at those plans and make sure that we're consistent on that. Yeah, no,
that's good feedback. So I think our procedure has been slightly different, and I actually have a meeting set up with Al and Jeff next Tuesday to discuss a little bit further, get Al's perspective, kind of see what we need to do, and then also have a follow-up question and answer session on fire safety in September sometime. So we kind of already have that in the works, but yes, since I've been here, that has been the process. The one change is the zones. So right now it comes across which zones should evacuate. So even if you're in the apartments, you don't necessarily need to evacuate unless it is your zone. And so that's where we can reevaluate. So right now, a lot of the majority of the community, or the whole majority, when we did the zones, that is kind of a shelter in place unless you're in the zone that states evacuate. But we can follow up, like I said, on our radar, already meeting on next week. So if we need to give additional feedback or changes and work with Garden Spot to get the best information, we certainly will do that. So more to come.
Thank you.
Hold on, I got one before it.
As long as we're, oh, excuse me, as long as we're on fire doors, I was in the bistro recently, had finished up, was going to leave when that horrible thing went off, and then I could see the doors, all the fire doors closing. I was ready to get home. They had not told us to evacuate from the bistro, but I wanted to go home. I wound up going out the front and around because I thought they surely don't want me to open the fire doors all the way back to Maplewood. Would that be accurate? If we're in a place and the fire doors are closing, we should exit and move outside but not go through closed fire doors?
Yeah, I think typically you can go ahead, if all the fire doors are closed and the alert that's been announced is in another part of the building, you're fine to go through your fire door and go back home. If you anticipate that there may be a fire on the other side of that fire door, then they always advise you use the back of your hand, touch the door. If it's not hot, then you're probably okay there. But if the announcement of the fire is in that space, then absolutely don't go through to go towards the fire.
And the reason those doors close is we have a magnetic door lock in those scenarios, and the way that it works is anytime the fire alarm goes off, the lock releases and the doors automatically close in order to contain those spaces if the fire is in that space.
And what that does is it prevents the smoke from moving through the building. So smoke is the biggest killer in a fire, and if multiple barriers exist between you and where that is originated, then it's going to be much slower kind of progressing through a building. So that's why all those doors close in that scenario.
All right, since we're on such a hot topic, I taught school for a long time, and we had 400 students in the building. They came in, they pulled the fire alarm. It could have been during lunch duty. It could have been while you're giving an exam or anything. That was tragic sometimes. The other question I have is, we have Cedarwood on the 3rd floor of Magnolia. If there's a real fire, what's the plan to get those people out? It's no easy way to get them out, is there? Unless I'm not aware of it.
No, it is not an easy way, but we have coordinated with the fire department on exactly what that looks like and when to actually make that decision. Fortunately, that is not an us decision as to when that would occur. That would be up to the fire marshal, up to the fire chief to pull that trigger, but we are prepared if that were to ever occur.
There was a comment before about all the different apparatus that shows up when a legitimate, fire alarm goes off, and that's indication of the level of support to move people out of that space. There would be a lot of hands and a lot of help in order to accomplish that. They're trained on that. It's not unlike hospitals and other environments where they prepare for those kind of scenarios and are trained on how to accomplish an evacuation should it be necessary.
Looking at our structures, we had built a new building at our condo association and the HOA, and when they decided to build that new building, it was 4-story, they decided to go with concrete ceilings and floors. So that contained the building. It also gave you a different fire rating, a much better fire rating. Are any of ours like that? In spite of not having that, that's why you have sprinklers. Okay, the sprinklers will really douse most fires.
That's right. I think I can do this right. So of the main buildings that we're speaking of here, Lou, yes, all of them are built like that, except for Magnolia House West. That has a different construction type. So all of the other buildings, yes. Magnolia House West, no. All of them obviously are covered by sprinklers, though.
And even in a completely wood, stick-built building, you would use fire-rated materials, and there are approved construction methods in order to eliminate or not eliminate, but reduce, the chance or slow down a fire's progression through.
How about the new apartment building that's being planned?
That would be a wood building, I believe, but they've included all of that planning related to that. Yeah.
I'll just share that we can be assured any of those fire rating regulations are not getting simpler. They're getting much more complicated and more expensive. To Steve's point, when you make that cross-section between floors, especially in a wood building, you're doubling up layers of fire-rated drywall, and they're always looking for that, the heat transference, and that's what gives you the fire rating. So is it a 45-minute rating, like I mentioned earlier? Is it an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, that kind of a thing? So if you do have concrete, like a plank, precast concrete plank between floors, that's great. It is more expensive, and it's very unforgiving if you ever need to make renovations, because now you have a concrete floor that you have to deal with, which is, it has its benefits, but it has some drawbacks. But again, and Lou made that point about the sprinkler system, a sprinkler head, and you can always see them, they're everywhere, they're rated for a particular temperature, somewhere between like around 150 degrees to 170 degrees, something like that. But if you think of a fire underneath a sprinkler head, as soon as that, there's like a little wax nib in there. That's the part that actually melts and opens up the valve. If we ever had a fire, we would have sprinkler heads going off all over the place, which is another reason to stay put, because now, if you're, and I know we're going to work on that, but now you have water. Now you have water on the floors, and it's not a little bit of water, it's a lot of water. When those sprinkler heads go off, and that's the whole point, is they're going off over top of wherever that fire is. So we should be vigilant, we should have these conversations, but please know these are commercially rated buildings, and should there be a fire, and we even have it happen in settings, in the care settings, like skilled nursing, those kind of settings, and boy, does it make a mess. And what happened? Well, it was like not just burnt toast, but it was charred something that set it off, and then, oh boy, you have to remediate and everything else. So anyway, just a thought.
We were sitting outside when the fire episode happened in Magnolia. And I went over, I was a nurse on a 7th floor of a skilled nursing unit and had a fire on my unit. They are prepared to take care of those residents. And that day I went over to see if I could assist, and I was very impressed with how everyone took care. They were so caring of what was happening to the residents. And it made me feel good that they are instructed and aware, because when you have a fire, it is a nightmare. And I felt, okay, they're on top of it. So I thank everybody.
Yeah, glad to hear that. Thank you. That's good feedback as well. I think as it relates to fire drills, the one incident that always comes to my mind, a number of years ago, there was a hospital facilities director felt like their staff were not taking fire drills seriously enough, and so he wanted to make it realistic. So he went into one of the unoccupied rooms and set the mattress on fire, and ended up causing like $1 million worth of damage in the hospital. So we're not going to do that, but we do want to take it seriously as it relates to, particularly in the care areas and other spaces. So we'll have some more review and just freshen up those plans and do more education on that as we go forward. That's good conversation. Did that guy get promoted? I think they helped him find another place of employment, actually, yeah.
He's running for Senate this year, I believe.
Just a follow-up on Cedarwood. My husband was there for 15 months, and I saw what the nurses did. I saw many times that they had the fire drills, any time of day or night. They all do know what they're doing. And on the other thought, our fire department periodically brings in young people being trained. I saw them so many times throughout that period of time, especially up at Cedarwood. They go up and get taught. Nobody wants a fire, but I feel very comfortable here that we know how to handle it.
Good, thank you. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The fire companies take those situations very, very seriously and do a lot of training. You know, I'm always in awe of volunteer firemen and the amount of time that they put into that role. It's a true sacrifice and service to the community. I don't think they get recognized enough for the work that they do. Okay, well, we're coming close to the end of the hour. Yeah, get a couple last questions in.
I don't know if I have a right to ask this, but I'm curious with the increase in the monthly bill that we got starting the new fiscal year in July, if that helped Frederick get on more financial standing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, those are things we look at. We try to moderate all of that and balance all of that with rate increases versus other ways to be more efficient in the way that we do business here. But it certainly is leaning us in the right direction. Yeah.
And to clarify, you are absolutely allowed to ask that question. It's expected, right? We say this all the time. These are your funds that we are working with to benefit you. So yes, absolutely ask away.
On that line of thought, I think we did a lot to increase the cost of actually buying in because we were way under on a lot of our places. And the money we pay monthly is more for operating cost, where we do look at each budget item and try to make sure we can shave it down if we can and keep it as low as we can in any kind of increase. But the big bucks come in when you buy in. That's where we needed to do better to beat down any kind of deficit.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your mentioning that. One of the things we've seen is that housing prices have gone up significantly. Cost of construction has gone up significantly, and we haven't always kept up with entrance fees. You know, the concept or the idea between an entrance fee is somebody should be able to sell their home and roll that into an entrance fee, and that should kind of cover that. Well, now, you know, a lot of people could sell their home, take half of that money and pay an entrance fee, and then have the rest covered. But the challenge is we use those funds for all of the ongoing capital improvements on the campus. And that's what keeps us able to freshen things up, to keep them current with technology and with all of the functions and things that we've been talking about. And if we let that fall behind too long, then we you know, are in arrears on some of those things. So that has been an effort. You may hear something from a friend like, costs have gone up a lot. Well, yes, they have, and that's a reflection of the larger environment that we live in and function in, and it's also a reflection of the increased value of someone's home in the community and what they can sell it for. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, thank you all. Good conversation. We've got a list of things that we can work on here in the coming weeks, and appreciate that feedback. Have a great day, great weekend.